Hey guys, it's Bunny, and I was thinking about something today. I don't know if I've told you all that I have an eating disorder. It's called non-specified. It's called non-specified because when it originally started, it was anorexia. It was anorexia when I was a teenager, and then when I went to college, I met up with a girl who was bulimic, and she got me into bulimia. We would run to the cafeteria and we would eat, and then we would run to the bathroom and throw up together, and then we would exercise like crazy. And she tried to get me into laxatives and diuretics and things like that. And she happened to get sick one day, and I went with her to the infirmary. And the nurse asked us, I don't know how the nurse knew something was up, but the nurse asked us, do y'all take diuretics or laxatives? And she said no. And the nurse goes, well, it's a really good thing, because once you start that, if you take them enough, your body won't work naturally without them. And that scared me. I'm scared easily. I'm highly suggestible. And her saying that was enough to keep me off of them, because I thought, man, I don't ever want to be in a situation where my body doesn't work right, and I have to take medicine to make it work right. And so I didn't get to that point. When I moved back home, then I couldn't be going around throwing up in front of. I was living with my mom. I couldn't be throwing up at my mom's house, and so I kind of let my eating disorder kind of go to the wayside for a while. And I had kids and had to set a good example for my kids, so I sort of let it go then. I guess I stayed basically an emotional eater. When I would get angry, or I would use food to kind of control my feelings. When I would get really upset or depressed, I would try to use food to make me feel better. And then I got kind of orthorexic. And orthorexic is where, for me anyway, I could look at food and almost any food, and if I thought about it, I could think of a reason why not to eat that food. Like if I would eat a salad, I would think, man, I'm here eating plant cell walls, and I would think about xylem and phloem and plant tissue, and that would just gross me out. And then if I would try to eat like an apple, for instance, I would think, I am eating this plant ovary, basically, and that would gross me out. And so it got to where for a while I didn't like to eat anything except things that were squeezed from plants, like juices, and I could eat like apple juice because that had been squeezed from an apple, and for some reason that didn't bother me so much. Juices and milk, I could even milk, because milk has bacteria and pus percentages that are allowed. That would gross me out. So, and then when I would eat meat, I would think, man, I'm eating some animals' muscle and or organ meat, and it just, I could pretty much gross myself out about anything. Nuts didn't bother me much, and like I said, anything that was actually squeezed from another thing, I would do okay. But it's difficult to live like that, or it was difficult for me to live like that. So I pretty much just gave in, quit thinking about food, and the emotional eating kind of took over. And so slowly, if you don't pay attention to what you're eating, I calculated that if you gain a half a pound a month, for 20 years, you end up putting on, I don't know, a whopping amount of weight, which is what I did. And I ended up having a gastric sleeve. And a gastric sleeve is where they cut away 80% of your stomach and they just leave you like a tube for a stomach the size of a banana. And that helped, except that they told me before the surgery that I would have to be really careful after the surgery because I could burst the stitches. And the thought of that kind of grossed me out. And so the feeling of being full would creep me out. And so I wanted to throw up, but I was afraid that would burst the stitches. So sometimes I would eat and then I would feel full afterwards. I don't know if you've ever eaten and then a few minutes later you start to feel more full than you did when you quit eating. So I got to where I would just basically drink things. And for some people that might be a good thing. For me it wasn't, because what I got to where I would do is I would go to Starbucks like 3 times a day and get a large white chocolate mocha, because I could sip on it. I could sense when I was getting full and I would stop, and then I could sip on it a little later when I wasn't feeling full. Well, I would do that three times a day, maybe 4, and I wouldn't eat anything during the day. So I thought, okay, I'm doing good. My diet's under control. I'm not eating anything. But there's probably a ton of calories in a white chocolate mocha, especially when you put the whipped topping and everything like I did. So I still had a weight problem. And even though I was on a liquid white chocolate mocha diet from Starbucks, plug for Starbucks. So the whole point of this was not to tell you about my eating disorder. My eating disorder, again, like I said, is non-specified because I've run the gamut of all types of eating disorder. I've never been a real binger because it's just never been a thing for me. I have been a purger. I've been anorexic. I've been bulimic. I've been orthorexic. But the reason that I wanted to talk today is because of the fact that what I learned is that I keep my food on a schedule now. I have a very strict diet that was provided to me by a really good nutritionist, and it's on a schedule. I have breakfast at 7:30, I have a snack at 10:30, I have lunch at noon, another snack at 3:30, dinner at 5:30, and then a snack at 9 o'clock at night. And that, because I can't trust my hunger signals anymore. I've gone so long that I've manipulated and ignored and tried to control my hunger signals that they just don't work very well, or they try to. We don't get along very well. We don't speak the same language. And so I've got this schedule, and I keep my phone set on a schedule so that it tells me when it's time to eat breakfast. I eat when the alarm goes off. If the alarm doesn't go off, it's not time for me to eat. And when I get emotional and I want to eat and I think it's not time to eat, that's easy enough. But sometimes when I'm really upset and the alarm goes off and I think I don't want to eat, I'm too upset to eat, or I can't eat right now, I'll just miss this snack, or I'll miss this meal. And so I talked to my nutritionist about it, and she explained to me that it was very important. It's very important to be consistent in my meals. And the way she explained it to me is, when in your head things are like this, and in my head things get like this a lot. Things are all chaotic and in turmoil, sort of like a washing machine, let's say, just going around and around, and I can't get control. If my diet is consistent, if my diet is rigid and consistent, then I have some stability in my life. And this can be going this, but I still have some consistency and some stability to hold on to. And when she said that, to me it made sense. And I don't know if that makes sense for everybody, but it made a lot of sense for me that day. And the reason that I'm having this talk is because Not because I think that everybody should be on a plan, not because I think that everybody should have a schedule or live by a schedule, but I think that if you have places in your life that are chaotic, or if you have a lot of areas in your life that are chaotic, or if your mind can get chaotic, I think that it's important to have a place in your mind that you can go to that is always constant, that is always consistent, that is always solid and firm. Because when you can move to that place, it sort of helps to set things right again. I visited with a friend the other day, and we went out on her back patio, and it was very peaceful and it was calming. And I remembered that at one point in my life I was instructed to spend at least 10 minutes a day outside. It's like when you can calm everything down and go to something and just stop. It's like it pushes a reset button and it just stops everything, and you can clear out the chaos for just a few minutes. If you can clear out that chaos, then you can okay, I can face this again. And then you can go back in and tackle it. Then maybe the chaos is going to come back, but you feel better able to handle it, or I feel better able to handle it. I can be stressed, but if I can step outside of that stress for just a few minutes, when I was at work, I would just step away. It would just get too much, and I would think, I'm going to scream. I'm just going to scream. And when I would get to that point, I would just think, I'm just going to go to the bathroom. It wasn't the point that I was going to go to the bathroom. It was that I was going to step outside, walk down the hall to the restroom, and just in getting away from that stressful environment for the few minutes that it took me to get to the bathroom, use the bathroom, and then come back, when I would open the door to come back in, I felt a little renewed in just that few minutes that it took me. It was like pushing a reset button. And so in your workplace, if you have that type of stress, or in your life, in your day, anytime that you have something that gets you that agitated, and that's why I say a washer, because it's agitation. You just get overwhelmed, frustrated, agitated. It's just volatile. If you can just step outside of it, for a few minutes, just for a few minutes, it's going to change your focus, change your perspective. You're going to focus on something else for just a couple of minutes, even if it's just walking to the bathroom, like I said, or going outside and seeing the sunshine, or even if it's the rain. If you just step away for a minute, check your schedule, whatever it happens to be, go to something that's consistent, go to something that's different, then come back. It's going to give you a whole new perspective, it's like giving you a breath. It's like counting to 10. When people would get really upset and they'd say count to 10, it's because it shifts your thoughts. It shifts your thoughts to something else. And at the end of the 10, then you come back and it's like, okay, I've had a moment to breathe. I've had a moment to think. All right, let's start over again. And it can be life-changing. So give that a try and see if it doesn't help you in your life. I hope that little tidbit has helped somehow in some way. And I hope you all have a great day. And I'll see you soon. Bye.